So hi guys, I'm Sep and welcome to my channel. So we watched Lord of Mysteries episode 1 and this is episode 1 cut content by AniNews. Shout out to AniNews. What did the anime change and all your questions answered. So we are gonna watch this to know and understand the story more. So let's start.
If there was ever a series that needed to cut content to go along with it, Lord of Mysteries would definitely be it.
Absolutely.
That's not because it's impossible to watch without. It's just there's so much lore that the Donghua can't possibly cover all of it.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Like, whether it be Beyonders and Pathways, the mysterious kingdom Klein now finds himself in, the churches and cults, or the history behind all of it, every aspect is fleshed out in rich and overwhelming detail. Now, I know a lot of you might be confused with what you watched from episode 1, but I promise that sense of bewilderment is all part of it. Just like how Klein is unsure of where he is, how he got here, and what's going on around him, we too are thrust into this world with no information whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yes, the pacing is undoubtedly fast, but I think this video can really help to alleviate that. So,
Okay.
if you're looking to better understand Lord of Mysteries and see how episode 1 compares to the novel, stick around as this will cover all of that.
Thank
But
you.
first, if you're looking for a new RPG with amazing graphics introduced, it's doll spring with unique weapons or in. Alright, episode 1, The Fool, covering chapters 1 to 14 from the web novel, where the anime starts with a very brief description of Beyonders and Pathways. The novel begins immediately with Klein's transmigration, a concept most of you might be more familiar with as getting isekai'd.
Yes.
His awakening was met with quite a bit of confusion since paralysis, pain, and headaches overwhelmed his entire body.
So
He
could
hadn't
feel the
yet
pain.
realized he wasn't Chou Ming Shui anymore, so the main source of his panic was thinking he might not be able to show up to work tomorrow. It was once his body finally allowed himself to move again that Klein would take in his surroundings, then himself. Immediately he knew this was a transmigration he'd read about in so many novels before, so while younger him might have been overjoyed to be in a situation he'd always fantasized about, the current him just found it troublesome. Eventually his panic would subside, and it was soon after that memories of the original Klein would start appearing to him. He would learn all the general info we saw in the anime, plus a bit of extra details regarding his family. So, his father was a sergeant who'd sacrificed himself during a conflict with the southern continent, a loss which would provide the compensation enabling him to attend private language school.
That's
This in
why he
turn
knows
laid the foundation,
languages,
allowing
words,
him to
and
get into
accent.
university, a period of time where his mother would pass away as well. That being the case, all Klein has left is his elder brother,
Oh, this is the elder brother. I did not notice.
a younger sister, and the two-bedroom apartment they stay in. They're by no means wealthy at all, but they are supported by their elder brother and his income at an
Benson Moretti.
import and export company.
Import and
Now,
export.
as a history graduate himself, Klein has a solid knowledge of the origin for all languages.
The ancient language deemed the origin of all languages in the northern continent. Oh, so Fisak is the main ancient language. That's why it was not mentioned in the extra.
Is in the northern continent, as well as the more rare Hermes language more commonly used in ancient texts and praying rituals. This is the language the mysterious notebook
So we know from the extra that Hermes language is mostly used, but the ancient Hermes is more dangerous because it's used for rituals and magics and other stuffs. And Fisak is probably the more older language, but it is
was
not
written
that
in,
common.
but rather than have numerous bits be translated like Black Emperor or the Tudor Kingdom,
Yeah.
the only line Klein read was the final one. As shocking of a statement as it was, Klein's attention couldn't help but shift towards the revolver. Reason being that if his family was as poor as it was, then how was it that they could afford this
he
weapon?
took it from Welch.
Even the gas lamp was something far out of their budget, but that was a gift his older brother Benson saved up for.
Oh,
You see, because Klein's success would affect their family's future as a whole, Benson had used his own savings in order to ensure Klein had the best conditions to study in. It was a negotiation with the landlord
Brother is
that
also
resulted
nice.
in
The
this.
sister was nice also.
This, however,
Yeah,
was a gas meter, and it required one single coin to operate.
That's what I was wondering.
A copper penny typically used as the basic currency for the Lone Kingdom.
Yeah.
Klein would then see it was still the dead of night, so that's when he figured he should clean up his room before his sister woke up. It was a routine trip to the bathroom, triggering another one of his memory fragments. This time it was about his landlord, Mr. Frankie, and all the times he would inspect the bathroom to make sure no one was wasting anything. That he and one of his memory fragments. It was a routine trip to the bathroom, triggering another one of his memory fragments. This time it was about his landlord, Mr. Frankie, and all the times he would inspect the bathroom to make sure no one was wasting anything. That's not really that important, but what is are the occasional memory fragments, as well as the fact Klein got a washcloth then cleaned all the bloodstains from his former self-suicide attempt.
Yeah.
He would then empty out the revolver, take in once again the ominous line he read, then go over all the questions currently plaguing him. So it's pretty clear that Klein is rather insightful. He takes his time to let things sink in, then thinks about them carefully before coming to any conclusions. Most of his questions weren't any he knew he needed to concern himself with just yet, as the true problem now was figuring out why he was isekai'd and how he could return. There were too many things back at his old life that he didn't want to leave behind. This triggered the last memory he had before he got here, and that was his attempt at Chinese divination. You see, as someone who was terminally online, Cho had purchased a book on the arcane thinking it would help him improve his posturing on the internet. It really didn't help at all, so for a while he just left the book tucked away in a corner. It was when a spree of bad luck started plaguing him for about a month that Cho would put his divination knowledge to use. He would go and attempt what's known as the luck enhancement ritual. The steps were exactly as we saw in the anime, plus a chant a bit more complex than just the celestial worthy. Klein had actually said the accurate version in this scene here, but for some reason it just wasn't translated properly. In any case, it was once the 4 steps were taken and the chant spoken that 5 minutes was all it took for the luck enhancement to take effect. Well, nothing happened after 5 minutes for him, but his transmigration did occur that exact same night. Considering that's more than just an unlikely coincidence, Klein decided he would try the luck enhancement ritual again. Thus why we see him buying all the bread the day after. It was for the time being, though, that Cho would attempt to discover more about himself, since Klein's memories were partially available in effect. Well, nothing happened. 5 minutes was all it took for the luck enhancement to take effect, and wasn't translated properly. In any case, it was once the 4 steps were taken and the chant spoken that 5 minutes was all it took for the luck enhancement to take effect. Well, nothing happened after 5 minutes for him, but his transmigration did occur that exact same night. Considering that's more than just an unlikely coincidence, Klein decided he would try the luck enhancement ritual again. Thus why we see him buying all the bread the day after. It was for the time being, though, that Cho would attempt to discover more about himself. Since Klein's memories were partially available to him, he could sit down and recall whatever fragments were there. The thing is, a lot of the more pertinent things weren't. His memories were like shattered glass, missing pieces all throughout. He couldn't remember how he'd attained the revolver, whether he'd been killed or killed himself, or even the meaning behind any of the words in the notebook. He also couldn't remember much about his university life, but what he did know was that he had an interview with another university's history department. Since he'd just graduated from the Koi University,
this is the old man from the extra, I am guessing. And he also mentioned about Klein, how he was a good student, so yeah.
His mentor had given him a recommendation letter for 2 other ones.
Oh, Tinger University, Blackland University.
One of which he would be interviewing at for a lecture position in just 2 days. It was a position that, if offered, would boost his family's socioeconomic status way higher. Compared to his brother's salary of just over £1 a week, the lecturer's position gave almost quadruple. So this was an opportunity that could change all their lives for the better.
Yes.
Now, Melissa's entrance after would also carry quite a bit of information too, since it's here we learn of the ties between Lowen's education department and religion. In the past, Sunday school was offered by various churches, but in an attempt to mitigate conflict and maintain religious neutrality, the kingdom enacted a basic education law. Rather than have the Lord of Storms, the Evernight Goddess, and the God of Steam and Machinery all compete, the kingdom instead established public schools. I don't expect those titles to have any meaning to you right now, but it does introduce the idea of multiple churches and their influence over society. In any case, Melissa herself aspires to be a steam mechanic, a passion also supported by her older brother Benson. With the tuition that was more on the costly side, Benson would have to work overtime and take jobs that were a bit more dangerous. It's for that reason we don't really see him, since work has kept him more or less preoccupied. For those wondering why Klein doesn't help out too, well, as a commoner very far behind in the university curriculum, it takes all his time just to keep up with it. Like where all the other students learned the origin language young, Klein's first contact with it was here. That being the case, studying was pretty much all Klein did. Now, what Klein picked up here was the most valuable item his father left behind, but due to its secondhand nature, it would often malfunction.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was wondering about the clock. Like, I was so confused about the clock. It was not
all Klein did.
What was all the
now, what Klein picked up here was the most valuable item his father left behind, but due to its secondhand nature, it would often malfunction. Melissa, being the aspiring mechanic she was, often needed to fix it herself.
That's why
it's a feat we see her do once again here. She would then leave to attend her classes, a walk which normally took about 50 minutes. There was the option to always take a horse carriage, but due to its costs, she decided against it. A quick bit of lore included shortly after this is that days and years function pretty much the same here. The reason days are split the way they are here, though, is directly due to the influence of religion. You see, there were 7 Orthodox gods carrying influence.
7 Orthodox gods. Yeah, it was like mentioned in the halftime of the original episode. The eternal blazing sun, lord of storms, the god of knowledge and wisdom, the Ebonite goddess, Mother Earth, the god of war, the god of steam and machinery. We in the extras also we learned about many of these churches. So there are like 7 churches
over the northern continent, each of which I assume get a day of their own.
Oh, so these 7 churches has their
influence
own
over the northern continent, each of which I assume get a day of their own. Next came an explanation to the Lowen Kingdom's currency system, but due to its confusing nature and grossly uneven denominations, I'll give it some time to see if knowing about it is actually worth it. For now, all you gotta know is that Klein and his family are broke. Klein also has an unnatural passion towards money, so the man spent a whole minute admiring it before finally setting out to spend it.
Really?
Now, at first he was hesitant to bring the revolver too, but considering it was the only defensive weapon he...
So, in that episode I was also confused, like who was like triggering the gun. So it was Klein himself, so it was too so that he also like brought the gun.
He had. Klein figured he could at least use it to intimidate someone. Why would he need to do that? Well, his neighborhood was by no means classy.
Like dangerous.
The streets were filthy and the poor and starving were everywhere, so the odds of there being thieves were actually quite high. Even more so with all the children getting exploited to become them. It was after Klein had purchased the bread that a trailing figure wouldn't be what sent him into the Tarot tent. In the novel, he would just stumble upon it by chance, then decide to take part since the origin of Tarot here was different than how it was on Earth. You see, not only did Roselle create that, along with all the other inventions Klein mentioned, he also invaded nations, brought others under his protection, and made them all bow down to his own empire. It was from this the Church of Craftsmanship would receive its first public holy revelation, changing the god of craftsmanship to the god of steam and machinery. Again, I wouldn't get too caught up on what any of that means, but would instead just focus on the fact Roselle was the one who caused it. He also created a fleet that discovered a route to the southern continent, leading to the beginning of an era of colonialism. The year 1198 was when he was finally betrayed, assassinated by a combination of forces from a rebelling church and the former royal family known as the Sauron family. Such was the knowledge Klein flooded himself with, leading to his interest in the tarot cards. He was also intrigued by the lady herself, curious to see if she could divine that he was a transmigrator. The ritual itself was pretty much the same, but the number of the Fool card is actually supposed to be 0. To Klein, he assumed this symbolized a fresh beginning and new possibilities, but that was based off a very basic understanding of tarot. It was before he could find out what it really meant, though, that the real fortune teller would interrupt and stop them. Klein would then leave since the ritual was no longer free, purchase the rest of food, then head back home to complete his own ritual.
Wait.
So that the real fortune teller would interrupt and stop them. Klein would then leave since the ritual was no longer free, purchase the rest and stop them. It was before he abilities, but that was based off a very basic symbolized a fresh beginning and new possibilities, but that was based off a very basic understanding of tarot.
Okay.
It was before he could find out what it really meant, though, that the real fortune teller would.
Oh, so that circus lady was gonna explain like what it meant, but
Interrupt and
the
stop
original
them. Klein would then leave since the ritual was no longer free, purchase the rest of food, then head back
was
home
not
to complete
free.
his own ritual. He decided he would do it first in his own language, then should that fail, proceed to do it in the languages native to this world. So,
Okay.
with a whisper, a chant, another whisper, and a meditation, Klein would complete the 4 steps of the luck ritual, then quickly be overwhelmed by the sounds of whispers. He could neither understand nor distinguish what any of the voices were saying, but what he did know was that the pain of experiencing it was unbearable. It was once that pain finally subsided that Klein would find himself surrounded by fog. It was an endless gray fog dotted with countless crimson stars floating in the
gray
distance.
mist, gray
2 of
fog.
these stars he accidentally touched, leading them to burst open and empty both his mind and spirit. On the other side would be Audrey trying to awaken this royal heirloom, while Alger would be in the Sonia Sea holding a burst open and empty both his mind and spirit. The accident dotted with countless crimson stars floating in the distance.
Stars.
2 of these stars he accidentally touched, leading them to burst open and empty both his mind and spirit. On the other side would be Audrey trying to awaken this royal heirloom,
Royal heirloom.
while Alger would be in the
So
Sonia
he
Sea
was really
holding
trying
a
to
relic of his
awaken
own. Both items would Alger would be in the Sonia Sea holding a relic of his own.
Relic of his own.
Both
Okay, that
items would
last
envelop
time.
their holders with a crimson light, sending them to the same grey fog where Klein was at. This much we already saw, but what we didn't see was Klein's deliberation between his 2 options here. He could either feign victimhood, hide his identity and gain their trust, or maintain his mysterious persona and probe for valuable information. Gain their trust or maintain. He could either feign victimhood, hide his identity and gain their trust, or maintain his mysterious persona and probe for valuable information. There was little time to actually make this decision, so Klein decided he would exploit the psychological state of those thrown into such a situation and use that to gain the greatest advantage for himself.
Yeah.
He couldn't quite make out
He was
who exactly
bluffing.
he was talking to, but he figured the stronger he got and the more he understood what this domain of his was,
He's also
eventually he
manipulating
might
both
be
of
able
them.
to see through the fog. For now, the roles were made absolutely clear. Eventually, he figured the stronger he got and the more he understood what this domain of his was, eventually he might be able to see through the fog. For
So currently he
now,
can't see
the
through
roles were
fog.
made absolutely clear. Here they were the visitors and he the master. To Klein, their image was nothing more than a projection from the stars he had touched, creating what he could only assume was an intangible connection for us and he the master. To Klein, their image was nothing more than a projection from the stars he had touched, creating what he could
So did he like by chance like brought these 2? Because he touched the stars. So it was not like anyone could have come here.
only assume was an intangible connection only he himself could grasp. That's why he made it clear they could leave whenever they wanted, since with him being the one in control, he wanted to show he carried no ill intent towards them. This made things a bit more comfortable for Audrey, allowing her to open up and ask her question of how to become a Beyonder.
Yeah.
A Beyonder wasn't someone the average person would probably ever meet, but they did exist, whether in courts, tribunals, execution agencies, or other organizations. They were still fighting like how Alger said, it's just there's a lot less of them compared to the number that existed during the early years of the Iron Age. A lengthy period of time dictating the current and ongoing era of the Fifth Epoch. So, if Audrey wanted to become a Beyonder in this day and age, then all she needed to do was join a church. that was the
Oh.
first step towards doing so.
So that's why, like, the blue guy told her to, like, go to the Nobels and stuff. So he was talking
This
about the
typically
church.
involved losing her freedom, though, so the only other
Yeah,
option was to
losing
seek
her
out
freedom
royal
because,
families or nobles
see,
with a history branching 1,000 years into the past. That or seek out some of the so evil or the history freedom, though, so the only other option was to seek out royal families or nobles with a history branching 1,000 years into the past. That or seek out some of the more evil organizations hidden in the shadows. None of these were to Audrey's liking, so her inquiry into other options would lead Alger to reveal his own solution: the 2 Sequence 9 potions he himself possessed. These potions were the only way people could become Beyonders, and the name of said potion usually coincided with their core characteristics. People could become 9 potions he himself possessed. These potions were the only way people could become Beyonders, and the name
this is the only way people can become Beyonder. So potions are must.
self-possessed. These potions were the only way people could become Beyonders, and the name of said potion usually coincided with their core characteristics.
Okay.
That being the case, for the first potion known as the Sailor, this enabled one to have incredible balance, granted immense strength and illusory scales under the skin.
Yeah, the sailor and the keen observation one, or whatever that was. The observation was mentioned, but the characteristics of the sailor potion was not mentioned. So enables incredible balance, okay, grants immense strength, provides illusory scales.
Increased proficiency at swimming, then
swimming,
greatly enhanced
That's
one's
so oddly specific. Enhanced underwater
mobility underwater. So, for the
This
person
potion
who
seems
ingested it,
good.
they could easily swim like a fish without equipment and just as easily last underwater for at least 10 minutes. Such were the powers
So I think sailor one is like Augur is gonna take
that
the sailor
came with
one,
the Sequence
and the
9
other one,
potion Sailor.
The lady will take.
Spectator granted an exceptionally sharp mind and observational abilities, so the digestion of this would allow its
Yeah.
user to easily read people.
The sailor one seems better, but the sailor one will be more useful for Augur. Or
Whether
they can
it's
take
through their emotions or
the
conduct, a
spectator
person's real
one.
thoughts would always be on display for them. The key warning with a potion like this, though, is that once a spectator, you can only ever be a spectator. They were words that didn't really go to sway Audrey, though, so without hesitation, she would conduct. A person's real thoughts would always be on display. Whether it's through their emotions or conduct, a person's real thoughts would always be on display for them.
Okay.
The key warning with a potion like this, though, is that once a spectator, you can only ever be
Only
a
be
spectator. They were words that didn't
What does that
really
mean? Because they don't have any other powers.
go to sway Audrey, though, so without hesitation, she would express her interest in the spectator potion. The deal was that in exchange
Yeah, she took the spectator potion.
for 100 milliliters of ghost shark blood, Alger would then give Audrey the formula for it. Neither
Oh, so he gave the formula
had any
to her.
concerns the other wouldn't follow through, since, under the eyes of the fool, they felt assured. Alger would then give her the
They really have trusted client, but client does not know what
location
he
to
is
which
doing.
she needed to
He's
send the
just
shark's blood
acting and
to.
bluffing.
After
Okay, so these are the like things: Warrior and Sea Bar, Pelican Street, White Rose.
which he would dictate the formula's potion to her here.
Okay.
Now, Alger was rather ingenious with the way he approached all this, since the offering of his services wasn't just for show. No, since these gatherings were something he was pulled into without consent, if more were to happen and he couldn't refuse, then the best thing to do was reap as many benefits as he could. He'd already secured a resource that was rather difficult to obtain, and that to him was just the beginning. So, with their combined backgrounds, resources, and information networks, Alger believed he could get quite a great deal from these gatherings. Klein had no problem accepting these gatherings either, since already they've shed quite a bit of light on Beyonders and other secrets. So, if he was truly dedicated to figuring out how to get back home, getting as much information as possible was always a positive, even if it did put his own secrets at risk.
Yeah.
Now, with this gathering coming to a close, the founding of the Tarot Club would lead to insight on the tarot cards themselves. Just like in our own world, tarot cards here didn't come equipped with the power to divine the future. No, the divinity of such things came from the person themselves. Everyone has something spiritual, allowing them to attune themselves to the spiritual world, and it's the tarot cards that help people interpret the signs they receive from it. Most of those signs will go unnoticed, but for those that aren't, it's divination tools like tarot cards that will help you understand them. The cards Roselle made are a whole separate thing, each representing an unknown power and one of the 22 paths to the divine.
Okay, so his tarots are different.
There was mention of it originating from what's called a blasphemy slate, but
Yeah.
these are all concepts we'll learn more about in the future. For now, this would be it for the gathering, and Klein would chalk up his experience to understand them as something spiritual, allowing them to attune themselves to it. Most of those signs will go unnoticed, but for those that aren't, it's divination tools like tarot cards that will help you understand them. The cards Roselle made are a whole separate thing, each representing an unknown power and one of the 22 paths to the divine. There was mention of it originating from what's called a blasphemy slate, but these are all concepts we'll learn more about in the future. For now, this would be it for the gathering, and Klein would chalk up his experience as an incredible convenience. With its ability to communicate with others wherever and whenever, Klein would describe the Grey Fog as
Zoom
something
meetings.
akin to a social networking platform. As for the guests Klein just hosted, they actually got a whole chapter depicting things from their end. It's
Oh.
some side character development that could still come in the future, so that's something that we'll leave for later. I think this is a pretty good place to stop, so I'll be sure to continue the series with the rest of episode 1 next week.
So yeah, this was the cut content. There was some things that seemed interesting about the clock, because nothing was mentioned about the elder brother that was mentioned in the beginning, and some more details about the church and stuff that was also mentioned in the extras and the chibi version. How did he come here, and about the potions and stuff, how his father died and mother died, and about the churches. Yeah, these things. And yeah, I don't think anything was like pretty like so important, like something like that. No, it just gave the story and the first episode more insight and more details, more small details, and that was it for the first episode cut content. So yeah, I'll see you in the next reaction video.